feeling, guys? Good? So before we go to lunch, and please have a seat, I'll stay just up for a second. I just want to see, raise your hand if you've heard of generative AI or ChatGPT, Bard. Just show me your hands, okay? Who tested the version 4 of ChatGPT? Right? Meaning you're paying OpenAI right now, right? So who tested? Who has actually tested to connect with the plugins or the API of ChatGPT? Okay. Who has an active project within the organization with plugins of ChatGPT? Okay, you see? So let's have a seat, and we are going to dive into that topic, which is the shiny object in the room. My name is Haider. I'm, let's put it that way, a bridge between the industry. I'm a former pharma veteran, ex-Ferring, ex-Gedeon Richter, for those who know. And I jumped into the VC world not so long ago. Actually, I announced it a year ago here at this conference. So I see generative AI coming also from hundreds of startups that are hitting us from a VC perspective. And it is interesting now that we bring that to the pharma angle and the business case in the pharma angle. So can you, Julien, just present yourself, and then we'll go to Florent?
Yeah, I think you have seen already enough of me, but Julien Pahud with Lilly and working in digital health and innovation.
Florent, Grünenthal, the same as before.
So on this topic, I'm going to ask the team here to really DBS everything we heard, right? We are not trying to bring a new buzzword to the room. And it's not about ChatGPT, to the Google friend we have in the room, right? We talk about generative AI. So let's start with maybe a definition. When you see the title of this conference, we might feel there is a bit of a bias in the question. Can you tell us a little bit what you think of the context of ChatGPT, generative AI, in the commercial ops in pharma?
Yeah, that's a good question. And even broader than that, I think indeed, as you were saying, the title was interesting because thinking as a channel, I was thinking like, back in our younger days when like, oh, let's use the internet as a channel, or, TCP/IP. So this is more about what we can do with it rather than just making it a channel. Is how we will use generative AI that will make it interesting. And second layer, which is almost a philosophical question about it, is if we want to use it commercially in pharma, because it's about answering questions using prompts and leveraging AI to do that. So those questions we answered will be a truth. Now the question is, if we want to use it as a channel, do we want it to be our single truth from every company's standpoint, which will fragment it? And also what will be interesting is we'll be competing against other truths that will be on the same topics. Or do we see it more as, okay, let's try to aim higher. Let's try to aim, let's bend, let's discard our functional boundaries or company boundaries and see like, okay, as an industry, we believe in science. So let's ensure that generative AI, we are going to help to feed it, to nurture it, so it's a kind of independent that will present a more united truth against the others. So that's where I see. I think we have a lot of philosophical and ethical questions to answer, and then depending on that, it will change, and that's why I was saying it's a bit of a biased question. It will change on how we can play within that framework, but I think it's our responsibility to ask this question.
And it's coming back to the definition of how do you see it? Is it a tool? Is it your destination?
Exactly.
And are you actually able to adopt it? What are your thoughts on this, on the opportunities and the definition of it?
So I think we can still try to answer the question, like, can it be used as a channel? Because ultimately, many people would think, well, if I've got something ChatGPT-like that I can feed with my beautiful marketing message, and if it becomes a source of truth, then the physician will ask the question to ChatGPT and not to anyone else. I will save a lot of money, and he will get the message delivered, right? I don't think that's going to work because of that trust relationship thing. Now, can we use generative AI in the companies? Obviously, of course. One simple example, approval processes. When we went from paper to just iPads and digital content, one of the challenge of the guys we were approving was, well, I want to see everything as it's going to be shown to the customer. With generative AI, by definition, you don't know the algorithm. So you cannot predict what the stuff is going to answer to the question of the physician. So that's a compliance framework change. You can support that change by giving them generative AI systems to do their approval process. When you think about it, we take talented people with a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, and they do the most boring job in the world. They are just looking at slides, trying to find references, and is it the right number, and can we show this with that? Of course, generative AI can do this type of thing. It can swallow 80% of the workload or 90% of the workload for them. Then you need a human approval at the end. So that's a very basic use case.
I think this is interesting. So in what you're saying, in what you're sharing, and thanks for that, it's opening that you see AI that can be predictive, can be basically understand a process and repeat it at scale. And when we hear generative AI is about new artifact, basically, new things that we're not expecting before. So if I hear you, you can use and define, this is where definitions are important, you can tame that technology to help us scale processes, but in here you can create thousands of generative variation of an experience on a website, a banner, whatever is a marketing touch point, but now you can be happily surprised that it is matching the code of conduct of the said country. You have the limits, from the right disclaimer to put for, data privacy purposes. This is what you are basically sharing.
But what's fantastic with those models, and if you had asked me 9 months ago, I would not have said the same thing, definitely. But what's fantastic with those models is the way they mimic empathy. Like, they learn about you, what you want and how you want it, and they try to satisfy your needs on that basis. My 15-year-old son was making a funny experiment with ChatGPT. He wanted to know if ChatGPT could get depressed. So he was discussing with ChatGPT and feeding the machine with Lana Del Rey lyrics. Whatever ChatGPT would say, he would send back Lana. After 3 hours of that, the way the system was answering was not the same as at the beginning of the conversation. So somewhere it had evolved. It was not depressed, it didn't do anything bad, but it shows that if you put it in front of a team, the system should be able to deliver better quality of service after some time than at the beginning, and you don't program it.
So you still see it as it's not a revolution, it's incremental evolution of what we were doing. There is no like a huge change of people skills and platform, or do you still think that this is going to create a revolution in HR, in procurement, I mean, I'm just trying to speak facts, right?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one, and I think as we were discussing and many times this morning, AI was already there. I think the main thing that changed, and definitely it was a leap, but it's much more present in the general zeitgeist. So people are much more aware of it. So definitely, it's like when you are pregnant, you only see pregnant people. When you buy a new car, you always see that brand of car. So I think it's more that we see it much more. Also one thing, and I don't know if the case for you guys, but at least for me, I get bombarded by pitches about ChatGPT projects all the time. 99% who are absolutely the wrong use case or make no sense to use generative AI. So I think that also creates this climate, and we need to sort a bit on what we can, etc. But then definitely I think it's an evolution. I think we need to learn how to work with it. It can help greatly, but this is not something we are yet. I think it's much more that there is so much focus about it, but and sometimes, things grow better in the shade. So in the past, we could make some progress. Now we will get in a phase where there is a lot of scrutiny, but a lot of chaos, a lot of wrong use cases, and those wrong use cases might come back biting because, if you use it in the wrong use case, then it will fail. And as we were talking before, we don't always have the same failure tolerance. So people who were waiting like, hey, I told you this AI thing stuff doesn't work. So we are set back many years, so we'll need to balance those, but definitely an evolution.
I think this is one of the risks to have this kind of parade of dream coming, to the IT office or commercial office and saying, oh, we have a shiny object entering. So how do we prevent this as a team, that is, and we have all a responsibility, even me sitting, with startups that are going to hit you with those crazy stuff, right? We have a responsibility to tame them toward the right business cases. How do we avoid having that dreamy effect? And what types of concrete application you can see in the next 3 months, 3 years, right? If that window where we can feel there will be great value for medical, marketing, sales. Can you give us an example, maybe from?
So my advice would be, like for omnichannel and customer experience, anchor it into ROI. Have the finance guys with you since the beginning, because they sit on a lot of data that actually could be used and could be exploited with generative AI. but also they can keep you honest in terms of setting clear objectives for your AI program and what it should bring to the company in terms of value. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to end up in the same position as we did in CRM, where we promised the moon and we didn't even get to the next building, right? And then we have the digital, and now people are starting to ask, digital, why are you spending millions on digital? I don't see anything moving in the marketplace. And if you do the same thing with, AI, at some point, people are going to be, okay, give us a break.
So let me give an example to the room. So what you're saying, the way I translate it in a real generative AI sense is, I am on a digital asset management platform. I wake up in the morning, Monday, and I have that tool telling me, in the last 10 years, we've done that type of marketing across the world. These were the key messages that resonated with persona A, B, and C. For the new drug launch that you are having, you are sharing 64% of convergence with that persona base. We recommend you to use key message 1 with this scientific reference, and he's going to generate the key messages.
Ideally,
that's what we are saying, right?
But of course, a lot of McKinsey and others would disagree that only humans can do that. Otherwise, they don't make money anymore, right?
Yeah, but this is what we are. So just to frame it, we're not talking about machine learning and just basically having an army of data scientists. What makes this buzzing right now, and that OpenAI was, and sorry Google, but the fastest growing product this year, right? It's because the technology is so transparent and the experience is so delightful that it kind of works, right? The quality of the outcome is actually working well. So do you think right now, so the obvious elephant in the room is a sales rep. We love our sales rep. It brings you joy. If you're a GM, you want to have as many sales reps as you want because it makes you powerful in the organization, right? So do you feel this is going to be a plus, an add-on to the sales rep in an omnichannel world, or is it going to stress the commercial organization in doing things differently?
Yeah. I think it can do it on many levels, and that's again about how we are going to use it. Because I think, and it's interesting, because even when we heard, about next-best action, like, oh, this will going to replace the rep, that's going to be a robot, etc. But here, actually, it might even become just simply a new competitor to the rep, because if an HCP can get that answer about the content and that value from generative AI, why would you go and ask and spend your time with a rep to ask those questions? So that could be almost the doomsday type of scenario. But on the other hand, if we are smart and, short term, we can get, reps to train on interaction. So instead of having, those role playing that we do or trying, the first call and then it gets very shallow quickly, to the point you were saying, it can have empathy, it can react on what you say. Imagine that we use it in the short term to train our reps to have more meaningful discussions, to be able okay, this is what HCP get from generative AI. How can I bring my special herbs and spices, bring additional value, competing, having those discussions and saying, I think it can be of tremendous value. It will require, again, OCM, organization change management, so people be willing to embrace it, to try it, etc. Also, definitely one thing that's it's been a bit of Wild West is how do we ensure that for those models, they are, firewalled within the organization, because you don't want to start putting your marketing messages in the open world and feeding to what I was saying before. There would be this broader philosophical discussion, but in the short term, to do it, we need to ensure that it can be almost closeted, so we don't have those massive leaks that would set us back. Yeah. But we need to play on those two levels.
It's going to come. I think big tech companies are going to, like the Amazon of the world,
exactly.
the Google of the world, the Microsoft of the world, are going to create walled gardens,
exactly.
where we're going to operate and basically feed our data in a very safe way. So I'm not too stressed about the unethical use, some compliance officer might freak out right now, but it's going to be like cloud computing a few years back, with banks. No one wanted to go to the cloud. If you were a private bank in Switzerland, that was kind of a no-go. Oh, yeah. And right now, a lot of those banks are in the cloud.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to give to the crowd a little bit of a feel. You were talking about KPIs. From a VC perspective, what I see, we see DevOps teams, so engineers, that are telling me that right now the cost of seed stage startup, tech startup, is reduced by 6 times by having generative AI assisting the development of the code or helping debug the code. 6 times change. So you have 2 reactions on this. Some VCs will say, we are going to bootstrap the hell of a number of startups, so we are going to keep very nimble startups doing less for more, right? And some people are going to say, now we are going to go global, very much not seed staging in one region and just sitting there. We are going to still pushing the millions, but the playground is higher. I think we are going to see a difference shift in the way we operate in pharma at, building commercial teams. Now it looks a bit different. You can regionalize commercial launch. Those center of excellence, center of excellence, could be more global, because translation is not an issue anymore. Comprehension of the code of conduct is not an issue anymore. What is your feel about a world where potentially our team dynamics and team size will change dramatically?
Well, I think COVID was the biggest factor in that. I mean, during COVID, we hired people all around the world. And now the problem is for the company to bring those people together face to face. So the way we do it is to do it like on events like this or in nice places from time to time. But I don't see AI, changing a lot the human relationship on that stage or in the workplace. I see it, as an aid, as something that's going to make the business better, as something that's going to make us better. The customers will have it. One thing that was striking for me was that physician was saying, I have outsourced my empathy because I don't have time for it. So he was delegating his empathy to his nurses. And that's terrible because the guy was doing so many things. We need to give back time to those people. AI can bring them time. Our reps, our CAMs will be there, need to be educated, understand how it works so that they can be on point with the physician, what's on top of mind in the physicians at that point.
No, that makes sense. So I'm just looking at time. We're a little bit pressured because we have a lot of to do this afternoon. So as long as we can talk all afternoon on this, I think we need to wrap up, right? I just wanted to give some closure.
They may be hungry as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Maybe you want to eat, right? You're not still yet uploaded to the matrix, right? So I shared in many conferences we're entering a world of AI to AI, A to A, where tomorrow the golden KPI is changing the behavior of a human, right? But if in between we have those interfaces that are literally generated, right, we have to now connect between algorithms. So it seems to me that our industry, the pharma industry, really need to understand how to set up or position those technologies within themselves. It's not just an add-on, it's not a cherry on the cake, as we can hear. It could be transformational, but we need to understand the business of why do we do what we do, right? I think this is what is still a question mark for many companies. Am I right?
Totally right.
Okay.
I'm just going to do a shoot out. There's one guy, Spencer Wilcox, who is in the room, who is a guy coming from consumer good, and he helped us articulate our data into business questions that can then be answered by this type of models. But if you don't do that, it's going to be like a magic formula. You can't do ROI and stuff like that, so you're going to go to AI and no one understands how it works, and so, everyone stops asking questions. That's not going to fly.
So I put few keywords for you guys before we leave. I said context is important, understanding where to put that within clinical trials. It will be different than commercial ops, right? Different usage. Quality of the data, quality of the prompt. There are prompt engineers now, it's a thing, right? Precision, right? Precision marketing. The more personalized we are going, the more tailored we are going to need that scalability that those generative AI tools can do. Volume, that is something also that I detected as an opportunity for that type of tool. Creating delightful experience. I think this is also what we keep thinking we are the humans doing it the best. I think we are going to be quite surprised. And behavior change. Being able to understand what makes tick someone differently at scale, that I think generative AI is going to be better at us if we implement it the right way. And on that note, I think we need to wrap it, let you eat something. We are going to be there. If you want to continue the conversation with us, please do. We will be happy to share. Thank you so much.
Have a good lunch.